We are live. Cool.
Sweet.
All right. So for those of...
I was...
Oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
Go ahead. I was about to pull it up on my phone, but I can't do that, so...
Oh, yeah. So for those of us joining right now, we have been experiencing some technical issues, and Jared is now streaming from his phone. So we are going to hope for the best here. But so far, so good. We've had a solid connection so far, and everything seems to be working. So
Indeed.
we are going to pray to those gods of cell phone towers that they maintain their strength throughout this stream. It's doop.
How many we got in right now?
Currently, we are at 8. It was at 5 about 30 seconds ago, so it's starting to ramp up. I'm getting a lot more people like coming in and watching them after too. At least
sure.
on the second one. Also, for anybody watching, Jared is not able to see the comments. I will be relaying them to him as appropriate, just so you guys know. We have a question asking, how was our day? Jared.
It's been adventurous. Between the shop's internet not working and tethering off my phone, I mean, that's a great place to start. But I had a great meal at a local sports bar, and aside from some technical shit, it's been a great day.
Some little things.
Yeah.
Adam Brunetti says, Jared, what up, man?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I'm just gonna go and type this like an intelligent adult. What up? We got a Zach Bosherman in the comments.
Hey.
Cedric, yeah, he is at what warehouse you at? Sorry.
ESI in Tampa, Florida.
Okay, there you go. Also seeing the bandit sticker behind you. It's
yes, I got my cookie box.
Yeah.
Cody Cheatham did me some custom stickers, so I got cookie box.
Nice.
I've got cookie jar. They're all cookie themed based on the hat.
Oh yeah. Cody's awesome, man. I had him. He was my crew chief on Lost Lake Festival. I think they only did it 1 year, but dude is a monster of a crew chief.
He is
fucking incredible.
You can throw 20 hands at him, and he will task them all.
Yeah,
that.
I feel ashamed to even consider calling myself a tech. He's awesome.
No, for sure. No, he knows how to own a stage for sure.
Yeah.
I was very happy with him, and also my dimmer tech Jonathan from Bandit. He was a young.
Or was it a different John?
Montoya.
Oh, I don't know him. I feel like I've crossed paths. But yeah, that's just down the road from me. I'm like 10 minutes away from Bandit.
He kicked ass too. I was very happy with the Bandit crew I got.
Yeah, I've always felt like they have some of the best techs that I've worked with.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna dive since I worked there, but
well, I'm not gonna dive into the Sacco because that was a little iffy. If I never had to touch their Sacco again, that'd be fine. But
but their people are fantastic. I cannot say anything bad about their
and
people.
Make up for absolutely. It's like doing a load-in at Red Rocks. It fucking sucks because it's just painful the way the venue is, but the venue makes up for all of the nonsense load-in aspects. So
yeah. Man, I do have to say one thing about like having some older gear with them is that their techs actually know how to troubleshoot it. I think a
Oh, for
lot of the
sure.
issues
Yeah.
I've run into with some other shops is that like when they have only new gear, their techs only seem to know. Well, they don't know how to troubleshoot a lot of the things because they just haven't run into the issues before.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, you should see some like they've been completely redoing their entire shop. Everything's been getting repaired nonstop. Because what else are they gonna do for
No,
7 months right now?
between Bandit's or their own business Instagram profile and Bandit Tech Director, who's Jake, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
great guy. He loves giving me shit.
Between those two, I've been seeing all the updates, and I was actually going to go up there. Um, I was actually supposed to come up to Nashville a couple weeks ago, but that fell through. But I still plan on coming up there probably in November
Oh,
because
nice.
I want to check out Bandit's facilities, and
Yeah, dude.
also
Let me know if you're
my
coming by.
entire. Yeah, for sure.
Stop and have a drink if you've got a few hours.
Absolutely. Um, Plus, all of or the majority of my Frampton camp is Nashville based. Peter himself as well. So
Oh, nice, nice.
I'd like to catch up with him. I miss the guy.
Yeah, I bet. There's a lot of stuff. All right, we're up to 15 at the moment. We'll wait another minute or two, and we'll get this thing rolling.
Sweet.
It's climbing up there.
Jason is using a device that could broadcast or record this call.
Yes.
Ooh.
That is how we're making it to the. Yeah, it sounds so like insidious when you see. I mean, I guess people could use it for really shitty things, but the number of like NDI maneuvers going on to make these streams work.
See, I don't know a damn thing about NDI. I
Wait, how the hell are you
looked
getting
at
your stream in Skype? Oh, there's the virtual camera, isn't there?
yeah, I virtualized OBS as a webcam.
That's right. For some reason, I felt like that was NDI. I guess that might not be accurate. Probably is not accurate. But yeah, I'm using NDI to get you into my OBS so that I can pass that through and more abbreviations. 7th of October. That's this one was originally scheduled for the 7th. Yeah, we had to shift it. I've actually completely forgotten why, but we had to shift it to today.
I can't remember why either.
It's what is time these days?
Irrelevant.
Cool. All right. Well, we're up to 17, 18 people. If you're feeling like we're in a good spot, I'm good to go ahead and get this guy rolling.
Absolutely.
So, you know what? I actually kind of forgot who you've worked for except for Peter Frampton because I kind of have just lost my brain. So, if you're cool with introducing your own experience,
yeah.
I'll let you take it away.
For sure. So my name's Jared. I've been doing lights since I was 14. Started in church. That's where I learned my craft, and then graduated from church to local production when I was 18. And then when I was 21, I got my first touring offer with the Doobie Brothers and took that up. I've toured with them on and off for a total of 3 years. Also done some work for a company based out of LA called Base Hologram, and I don't have much to do with the hologram aspect of it. Basically, my job is to not light the hologram so I don't fuck it up. And then my most prominent gig or well-known gig is Peter Frampton, and I've been with him and his camp for 6 years. So as lighting director and designer. So
Cool. So I know your show file, your programming setup's a little different from the usual person.
yeah.
Not fully Q-stack, not fully punted, right?
Yes. I've got a few numbers. Let's switch cams here. So here on my smaller display, whether I'm on a 2 or a 3, I always have my executor pages laid out here. and this is where I bounce between each song. So like I just toggle through songs. Each song or number for whichever artist I'm touring with has its own punt page. Um, Usually this first fader here is either a single look or like one or two cues in a cue stack. And then I use, which unfortunately I don't believe is in here because, oh, there it is. Um, I use a super priority um, between songs that just basically puts my entire stage wash into blue for in between numbers. Peter does not like an entire blackout in between songs, so I use this to I toggle that in between songs, and then I off the page that I'm on, go to the next page, and then uh, fire my bass look and build off that. Um,
Nice, nice.
it's very untraditional. I learned on Avo for
I
those.
was just about to ask 'cause if I was right, because I know a lot of Avo guys kind of work in that way.
Yeah. Well, I didn't learn on Avo, but once I left the church and started doing local production, the house that I worked for was an Avo house. So I learned to busk, and 90% of the time the shows I was doing were artists that were unfamiliar, or I didn't know their entire discography or something. So you just you punt.
Right?
um, but one thing that's different from my MA2 uh, punt file from a lot of people is I don't use layout views for like my color picker or anything. Um, and I also don't use macros beyond what's built into the console. Not a single one. And I know once I get into my cloning thing, there's going to be people in the comments section that are like, you could totally streamline this with macros, but I'm not going to. I like to do it my way. So
Hey, you know what? There is something to be said for not like over automating it. Like there are definitely parts of my file that I won't completely turn into Lua scripts or macros just for that reason, to make sure that I remember how to do them.
yeah.
So, anyways, just I have respect for that approach as well.
Yeah, I don't. My thing with macros is, I mean, I know you can do some crazy macros that'll just crash a console, and you can be modest with macros, and they're fine. I like to be very intentional with every single thing that happens while I'm programming,
Sure.
and so using macros, doing some background work that you don't necessarily have input in, even if you wrote the macro, it's
Mm-hmm.
just I like to have the intentional input all the time as I'm building a show or programming, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure.
So, um, so um, for those watching, this is mostly me talking about how I clone. So currently, I have loaded my Frampton show file from last year. Um, this is actually a Chris Lyle design. For those of you know uh, Chris Lyle. He's
Yeah, yeah.
a Nashville-based guy. Did a fantastic job with this rig. Um, I was I pitched a few things to Peter for this design, and I, I guess I just don't have the eye for designing a rig like Chris does, because I think like Chris, I feel like took what I was kind of proposing to Peter and then turned it into something 10 times better. Um, but it's a really nice rock and roll rig. Sharpies and groups of fours on these fingers here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Let me jump over to 3D if I can. Oh, she dark. There we go. Oh, am I not? I don't seem to have 3D in session.
It's got the little green heart.
I have the green heart. What's up with that? And I see it on here.
You're not like unpatched, are you? For
Oh,
some.
that's probably what it is. Because I unpatched it because I'm going to PSR this into that
Oh, sure,
festival rig.
sure.
So
Yeah, if you give it all just dummy patches, I don't think the addresses have to be worth anything.
gotcha.
Yeah, I've never really understood that aspect. I'm sure it has to do with some internal thing that MA3D does. Um, do you need a minute to just get that patched in?
Nah, it does it's not terribly relevant.
Okay.
Um, but I'll dive through the rig real quick.
We've got a Justice Bradshaw in the comments.
Hey, Justice, all the way from California.
Yeah.
Um, so most of the rig was clay packy. Sharpies in groups of fours. BIs, that was at my request. They were originally not in Chris Lyle's design, but he was happy to fit them into the rig. And I had used them for a few tours previous to that, and they've just become one of my favorite fixtures. As horrible as they are, and as bad as I felt for Cody and Jonathan, my techs that had to repair them on a daily, I will still always have them on my rigs, especially for like 70s artists with like they're just great for psychedelic looks and like some groovy um,
Yeah,
patterns
yeah, I can
and
see that.
kaleidoscopic stuff. So, um, but yeah, I had Sharpies, Mythos, BIs. My downstage profiles were VL 3000s and GLP X4s. And what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to partial show read a festival rig that Eric Parker, also out of Nashville, designed. It was the Nashville New Year's Eve rig from, I believe, 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, Also had BIs in it, so it was just super easy to clone into. Um, so one thing I do is I start with my show file and I adjust all of my fixture IDs to 1000 101. So if like all of my 101s become 1101, all my 201s become 1201. So I don't have anything colliding when I start PSRing, if that makes sense. Um, but I'm gonna select those all.
Big old rig.
What's
It's a
that?
big old rig.
Right. We're gonna use Eric's stage, and we are going to prepare. I know in certain work environments you can just advance a rig to mirror the fixture IDs and whatnot of your show file, so you don't have to do this. But um, I prefer to do it that way. All right, and now I have this mishmash of a Peter Frampton rig and Eric Parker's New Year's Eve rig. And I'm going to wait for MA3D to get up to speed here. Perhaps. All right. So what I start with when I'm cloning to a venues rig or a festival rig is I start with creating layout views for that particular venue or rig. So I'm going to store a new layout view here. Sure. And we're going to dive into creating some layouts. One moment.
Yeah.
Let me dive into my merge show. Do not save.
So is this a version where you've already done some merging things in?
A little bit, but for some reason I was pretty sure I had my layouts already laid out for that rig, but apparently I do not. So um, all right.
I never got to see this rig. I know the New Year's Eve designs have been pretty big the last couple of years.
Oh, it was a nice rig. I
Was it at the amphitheater?
No, it was
Or
is it is it Centennial Park or
there is a
um
Centennial Park, yeah. I don't think they did it. Not Ascend?
no, it was not an amphitheater.
Okay.
No, it
Interesting.
was a festival stage built in a ginormous lawn.
Gotcha. Yep, that sounds like Centennial.
Okay, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna have to take a second here and build some layouts, it seems. So
Okay.
let's see what we got. Man, I'm unprepared, damn it.
Oh, it's like a real show day, though.
It's like a real show day. Goodness.
Ah, well, there's confirmation. Centennial. Shows how much I know about the city I live in. Jesus. Have you ever been to Germany for a gig?
I have not. I've been through Germany, um, flown through, but not stayed in. So, uh, I'm also looking at the show file that I prepared that I was going to clone into, and some of my addresses seem to have changed, which I'm almost wondering if it'd be better if I just try and clone into the rig that I have here in this room.
Hey, whatever you can make work. Cloning is cloning.
One moment.
Yeah. Just got a little discussion going on about doing gigs in Germany right now in the comments.
Who's that with?
Oh, just it's kind of everybody going into it now.
Mm.
Just people talking whether or not they've done gigs over there. And the types of rigs they've gotten to use. I've reached
All right.
bit of a debate. Nobody seems to know where GLP is based out of.
That's definitely German.
I think I'm setting myself up to be hung over here.
Uh-oh.
No, just making that joke. Giving me material. So what are we looking at over on your end?
Oh, I'm diving through the patch and creating groups for these fixtures that I don't have groups for.
I got you.
From the festival rig, and then I'm gonna let me switch back to this. I wish I had a printer.
That's been one product that like I would totally buy into. If someone could make just like a super compact printer, like not like a receipt thing, but like kind of like the super narrow like scanners,
Right.
that you could just have out at front of house for when you need to pass on information to guest people.
All right.
Comments about how unclicky the MA3 keys are, so I'm making up for it with my little mechanical keyboard over here.
There you go.
Making sure there's enough click to go around.
There we go. And I can't even use my phone to take a photo of this patch right now. So I just got to keep bouncing back and forth. It's thrilling.
Oh, right, because you have to actually get the patch right on this one since it's the actual rig.
Mm-hmm. All right.
People talking about changing up the bringing back cherry reds on the MAs. I've heard people talking about like doing custom keys on MA3s, but like that seems terrible if you ever decide to sell that console or try to rent it for that matter. Like,
what do you mean?
Like if you put a different set of keys on it, so it's like you're using like mechanical keys on an MA3, like that might be great for a couple of users, but then like people aren't going to want to rent it because you're going to have completely different feeling keys from one console to the next.
Yeah,
like,
no, I would want this console that I would just think any user would want that consistency.
Yeah, that exactly. Like even if I don't like it, I'd rather have consistency from one copy of a console to the next.
I don't like surprises.
Yeah,
I mean
that.
All right, 1701 through 17.
Sorry, I'm not trying to distract you.
Oh, you're good. All right, I believe I have all my groups made now. So
There are, just responding to comments, there are ways to do a session over like a wide area network. I want to say like Alex Hughes successfully did that at the beginning of the pandemic. I legitimately don't know how, but I think he connected like an NPU in one country to a console in another. Um, I don't know how it works, but apparently it is a thing you can do.
all right, so now I'm just creating my layout views with the groups that I made real quick, and then I am going to use the camera method to lay it out.
Cool,
So
cool.
let me just get to labeling things. So these are the Wing X4s. We got some Mythos. Right. Wrong keyboard. All right. I'm trying to figure out the best place to put this microphone. I feel like it's conveniently located for vocal purposes, but it's like in the way all at the same time. All right, Sharpie store. Lovely. Well. And let's do some BMFLs. Lovely. And no, BMFLs does not stand for big motherfucking light. Or those people that think that's what it stands for.
But is that what they wanted it to stand
That's what
for?
they wanted to. So, funny thing. Do you know Brian McNutt from GLP?
I do not.
He's their product manager, I believe is his formal title. So he's basically the guy that talks to LDs and gets their input on their products.
Sure.
And I was in LA a year and a half ago or so, and we were talking, and he was telling me about the JDC. He says, "Do you know what the JDC is named after?" I'm like, "Not really, no." He's like, "Well, we were in Germany, and we were hanging out, and we were drinking Jack Daniels and Coke, discussing what
Yep.
we should name the new fixture." Have you heard this?
Yeah, oh yeah, but please tell
Okay.
it. Please tell it.
And that's basically it. And then he's also telling me the KNV fixtures, like the KNV Arc and the KNV Cube, is Kahlua vodka, or
Kahlua and vodka, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just making comments about that. Have you heard about the
Kahlua
FR10?
88 vodka. That's what it was. What's that?
Have you heard about the FR10? So that's like it's like they took an X4 bar, they broke it down into 10 cells instead of 20, but they each have individual zoom. But hey, the FR stands for 4 roses. Like they're just on a roll with the alcohol in these.
I know. Germans know how to drink, so.
You will not hear me complain about it. Next thing, need a company starting to name their stuff after strains of weed.
Oh, it's getting there.
I'm sure somebody's gonna do it. I just don't think any are like popular enough to be like known. Or if they are, maybe I'm just not like deeply enough involved in that community.
Right?
There's some pothead waiting in the comments to just school me about saying that.
I say they're coming out with like all sorts of like weed beers and stuff now too.
Weed beers?
You haven't
No.
like beers that taste like weed. Um,
Huh.
what is the one that's really popular here in Florida? Hemperer is what it's called.
Oh my god.
And it doesn't have THC in it, but it tastes like weed, which I don't like beer, so I've not tried it.
Oh, really?
My partner has tried it, and he's in love with it. But
I love beer. I just can't stand IPAs personally.
see, I never acquired the taste for beer. I'm ciders or as white girl as it is White Claw.
Dark beers and whiskey are pretty much all I really touched. Straight moonshine lately. That's been a thing.
Woof,
Tennessee.
woof. All right. So I seem to have created all my layouts, and now I'm going to go into setup, draw my box, arrange, camera, and let's go top 2D, please. Apply. And there's that one for my X4. It's lovely. Mythos. That one's fine. I'll leave that. Sharpies. Ooh. It's that last one. Yeah. We're going to do top 2D again. Apply. Yeah, there you go. Seem to fit. Oh, I forgot about these Sharpies. Let's see if we can. Camera, and let's do. Actually, that looks decent. Let's see what front 2D looks like.
And so just to confirm, you're just setting up your layouts based on camera views, right?
Correct.
Just to make sure we're maintaining some education as we're getting this set up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Besides
Yeah.
types
So
of beers.
right. Yeah. So right now, if you see here, actually, let me just clear out of this real quick. You see these two wings here. Those are Sharpies from a top-down orient, but then these four here are actually a column of Sharpies. So I'm going to have to relay out these from a front perspective.
Oh, sure.
Because they're just oriented differently from each other.
Yeah,
Go apply.
those 2D cameras are my best friend when it comes to building layouts. The front
And
2D and top 2D view.
I didn't even know this was a thing until maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I still get people asking me like, "Hey, can you make a plugin that'll arrange your layout based on?" I'm like, "Actually, MA already did that like 7 years ago."
I'll call that good for the Sharpies, BMFLs.
Got a
We're gonna go
question asking if you find those lower screens to be a game changer, or not really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're talking about the letterbox displays here, or
I'm
these screens here?
assuming the letterboxes.
Absolutely. I have screen real estate, at least in mode 3. I have screen real estate here that isn't occupied by all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So it does give you a little bit more screen real estate. You get about 200 more pixels tall. You know,
Sure.
no big deal, but a huge deal to me. But yes, I think they're game changing.
I love that little command display that you get on screen too as a result.
What's that?
Your command line display that's always there.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's lovely for sure. And BMFLs are laid out, BIs, BIs are two instances. So what I usually do is I'll select them all and I'll hit next, and then I'll hold set and hit next using my MA tricks and select every other.
Which is a super handy trick for those who don't know about it. So
Yes.
just to reiterate for those who missed, holding set and next or previous will change your interleave count. Super handy.
Yep.
Also, holding MA and set and next or previous will change your block size.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I finally read the manual about that one
Ooh.
like 6 months ago. Also
That's
changed
good
my
to know.
life.
All right. Well, we're all changing each other's lives here.
Right?
All right, so I'm just going to separate those so I can clearly select the first instance from the second instance. Clear that out, and I'm actually going to store my second instance in another layout. Yeah, I like that better. And then I'm going to delete the second instance from this layout. Bye. And then we're going to arrange again by camera. And we're going to go top 2D. Looking good. Apply. All right, so that is my first instance BIs, and let's do the same thing with the second instance. Gonna arrange by camera, top 2D again. Yes. Might as well do that here. Arrange, I'm gonna actually arrange these by my front 2D camera, just for personal preference. Or not, that looks weird. Oh, that's side. Front 2D. Come on, there we go. Apply. Looks lovely.
Hey. What is that view?
What's that?
No, just the current layout.
Well,
Uh-oh. Jared? Alright, so for those who were not aware, we were having some technical issues prior to this that were dependent on his phone being able to maintain the stream.
cool.
Oh, we got him back. We've got him back. Cool.
We're good?
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. So make sure my phone's still holding up here. Seems to be good. So.
Cool.
So I've got all my layout views created for the festival rig, or rig that I plan on cloning to. So I'm gonna start. Let's start with BIs. So these are my rig BIs here in this layout view. And then I'm going to pull up the BIs from the festival rig here. For my BIs here, I have my first instance up top and my second instance on the bottom. For the festival BIs, I separated them into two different layouts. But as I was telling Jason a few days ago, I like to visually clone using layout views. So um, I'll go into setup and let's put that over on screen 2, please. MA's got me saying please all the time. It's made me a much kinder person. And we're going to go and do cloning. And what I'll usually do is I'll just take a visual look at what my festival rig is, and I got let's see, 1, 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 total. So what I'll probably do is I will clone these 6, take selection to those 6, take selection, and I'm going to hit prepare. I always deselect groups because I don't like my groups mishmashing together. And I also do not want my layouts overlapping. So I do no groups, no layouts, clone, and I always do a low priority merge. And those 6 fixtures are now cloned to these 6 fixtures, and then I will take selection here. And then I'm going to select these 6 in the opposite direction. Take selection that I'm cloning from, prepare. Same thing again, no groups, no layouts. Clone, merge, or low priority merge. They do about the same thing, depending on your show file. And we're going to start the process over. And again, I'm sure there's somebody watching this right now that's like, you could streamline this and make this so much easier, but nope, I like to do it this way. So I'm going to take that selection that I'm cloning to, select from this direction, prepare.
So
is this making sense
so far
as I'm going?
that you are selecting not specifically like keeping center at center on your destination.
And so I was watching the stream that you were doing on Thursday, and I know he was talking about symmetry and whatnot a lot. And as long as, like, since I just happen to have 12 fixtures in the festival rig and 6 fixtures in my rig,
right?
As long as I take my selection in the opposite direction for this side, I'm gonna get a symmetrical result. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. It's one of those things like, is that more of a specific thing for this scenario that you're dealing with? Because I've definitely done that, but it's only like in a specific scenario where I'm cloning exactly like 2 to 1. Like if I'm cloning 12 blinders into 24, sometimes I'll do what you're doing.
Gotcha.
I guess I'm asking, is this like how you, if you were going into 10 instead of 12, would you be working in the same kind of flow and just clipping a fixture off each side from your source?
Yeah, I would either. So sometimes I like to do, like, I'll take these 6, and then I'll take the 6 from the center, and then I'll take these 3 and these 3 and clone them to the outside 3. That's another way to, I guess, do it. Does that make sense? Yeah. It just depends. For some reason, I'm doing it this way right now. Most of the time, I got to put in some time to update all my focuses and whatnot. Anyways, it never ends.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfectly. But I also, like, I do rock and roll, so I still get the flash and trash out of that. And so it does me justice for the artists that I tour with or work with. And also, I don't do a ton of festivals. Besides the rare occasion that Frampton appears at a festival, or Doobie Brothers.
Oh, interesting.
So, so I've just kind of gone with an old school punt page or a punt show file, and my cloning is super old school, and I can't even remember where I'm at in the cloning process now.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. What do we got here? Okay, so I can see I've got half of my BIs here. selection. Oops. No groups, no layouts. Merge. Sweet. And then this time, just for you, Jason, I'm going to clone from the center. Clone 2. And for those watching, what I was talking about, so I already cloned this section of 6 right here. So now I'm going to grab these outside 3 and these outside 3. Oh, let me get out of setup. Those outside 3. Those outside 3. Go back into cloning. Cloning to those. Now I'm going to select these in the same order I selected those 6. Take selection, prepare, no groups, no layouts, clone, merge. Yep. And I'm going to do the same thing again, grabbing the center 6, setup, import, export, or cloning, take selection. Sorry, take selection over here. Grab these 6, take selection, prepare, no groups, no layouts, clone, merge. Lovely. Those 6. No groups, no layouts, clone. All right, so in my show file, I should see my BIs doing something fairly resemblant of what they do on my tour rig. Let's go over to Do You Feel Like We Do? Yeah, sweet. And it looks almost symmetrical. There's some nuances in there. Also, my show file is not symmetrical, and nor is the band layout. So don't expect a ton of symmetry out of my 3D.
I mean, well, you just have some artists that like that's a thing that works for them. My first tour was Brian Wilson. Chris Stuba was the designer and programmer on that, and the entire design was asymmetrical, and it worked great for that band. It was a weird tour for me to start on because it kind of took a moment for me to realize that's kind of not like the usual that other people are doing, but like there are some acts that just asymmetry works really well as long as it's done with intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've always had a symmetrical rig, but in the long run with my focuses and lighting the band, I don't always end up with symmetrical looks.
Sure.
I get a lot of symmetry when Peter approaches the talk box, which is downstage center. But when the band's spread out and I'm kind of lighting everybody equally or evenly, it's quite asymmetric. But it looks great on TV though. So
it's all about lighting the people first for that kind of an act.
And like bands. That was another thing. Watching your stream on Thursday, he was an EDM LD, and like that's just like go crazy with lights. You don't even have to consider lighting the artist. Like you put a couple Lecos on them, leave them there, but the rest of that show is just balls to the wall, go crazy. But I have a 72-year-old artist that I gotta make sure feels comfortable, can see his surroundings, and
exactly. And that was one of the things I tried to like hit on mine was just like context is everything. EDM, your focuses are like your intentions are completely different from what you're doing lighting a band, from what you're doing lighting theater.
Yeah.
It's all about what you're trying to put emphasis on and what you're trying to draw attention to. And again, if you have a band on stage, or if you've got one guy that sits in the same spot all night, which is not at all to knock EDM, it's just a matter, it's a fact. If your
Right.
DJ ain't moving, you don't need anything tracking them. You don't need a giant stage wash. But in
Right.
your case, you need to make sure that your guys on stage are lit and with a certain mood first before you're worried about how cool your air looks, I guess.
Right. For
Anyways.
sure. So I'm now going to jump to cloning my Sharpies. So this is the layout view from my touring rig, and this is the layout for the festival rig. And I seem to have 3 groups of 4 per column here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So I'm going to take that selection. Oof. Let's grab those last 2.
Would I be pushing my luck asking if we're able to see what the source and destination things are, like beyond on a layout? Do you have the rig in front of you? Do we have a shot of that?
Mm.
I don't know if you have a wide angle camera.
One moment.
I just like complicating your life, basically.
Oh, no, it's all good. Oof.
Can kind of see it.
There we go. Ooh, we got the tunnel happening. All right. Well, there's the rig.
Oh,
If
hey.
you can see that.
That was your
My
touring rig,
wallpaper.
right?
Yeah, that's the Chris Lyle design.
Okay. Okay, that makes much more sense now. I thought it was much more vertical.
No. Uh, it was actually a really. I liked the rake and just everything Chris did with the design. It turned out super cool. Plus those
Oh,
you
the
see
circus
on
scoops up
these.
there.
Yes, I was just gonna point
That's
those out. The circus
killer.
scoops on the downstage fingers and the upstage end of the upstage
I don't
fingers.
think I've
Those
ever
were
seen those mounted before.
amazing. Like, and from a company called Megalite that nobody's ever heard of, but they were. Oh, I loved having those fixtures. We had initially advanced Roby Pat's the 2017 color model,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and either Bandit didn't have them or they were already rented out or something, and so they suggested the scoops, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I looked them up, and I'm like, oh, that exterior LED ring
Uh-huh.
just sold me. Like, as long as they hold up, I'm down. Like, these things, they were dope. I loved them.
We've got a
uh,
question about the rig design. Was there a
yeah,
mother grid on this, like, or is this just hard rig to the steel?
there was a mother grid.
Okay. Were you on automation?
No, I
Okay.
wish. No, that would have been fun. It would have been. I mean, the way it's laid out, it could have been a very cool automated rig.
Sure, sure,
But also, even if it was in the budget, I don't think Peter would go for it.
sure.
He's just old school. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I'm just used to, usually when I hear about a mother grid, I'm usually expecting it's because something was moving up and down. Um, I don't know a ton about that domain.
yeah. All right, let's take the Sharpie selection here. Oh, it's so difficult. I might need to adjust these layout views a little bit. There we go. Cool. All right, so I'm going to take this selection of 4, or 3 groups of 4 there. And I also just happen to have 3 groups of 4 right here
Okay.
from my Frampton rig. So I'm going to take that selection from that rig, and then I'm going to take this selection 1, 2, oh, get out of setup. 1, 2, 3. Oh, didn't grab that last one. Taking selection. Looks good. Prepare. No groups, no layouts. Again, if anybody's tuning in that wasn't here earlier, the reason I do no groups and no layouts is because I don't like fixtures that don't exist in whatever rig I'm programming to merge into other groups. If you've cloned before, you know what I'm talking about. Also layouts. Perhaps in a minute I can do a demonstration as to what it does if you do not uncheck layouts. But
Yeah.
basically what happens is you'll get double boxes behind every fixture that you're cloning to, and it just kind of makes selecting things, it just clutters things up in my opinion, so I don't tend to do it.
Yeah, I've only seen one LD do it before, and I thought it was absolutely stupid, and then his show like just blew me out of the water times 20, so I just didn't say anything because, you know.
I'm curious who this was now.
It was actually it was a pair of LDs on Major Laser at the time. I don't know what they're doing these days.
Gotcha.
But it was one of those, I'm like, who the hell does that? And I was watching their show, I'm like, you know what? They kicked my ass. Whatever.
Hey, it happens.
It has Darius Medina, and I don't actually never learned the other guy's name.
Gotcha.
But fucking killer show. It was an EDM act.
Nice. All right, now I'm going to select these Sharpies in this direction. And again, I'm selecting them top down, left to right now, because it's the opposite side of the stage, and this will help me maintain that symmetry. Taking that selection, and now I'm gonna take that, and that. Take selection, prepare, no groups, no layouts, clone, merge. And one more time. All right, and Sharpie should be cloned now. Which they are. Lovely. So does this method, like how I clone, kind of make sense how I visually do it rather than I know some people like to do it like ID to ID or
Oh, wait to hear some comments back, but I mean, I think so. I think it's just, I think it's a fairly similar approach to the way I do it. I just don't necessarily specifically use. I guess I actually am using layouts for mine, but yeah, it's just a matter of kind of where you're handling your visual aspect of it from. You have, from what I'm seeing, two layouts pulled up, so you can see just directly back and forth between those two at the same time what's going on. Rather than like looking at your layout of your usual rig and looking up here and like trying to write down some map or something. For me personally, a lot of time, like I'm making notes on like a plot printout. I just like physical paper a lot better.
Gotcha.
But it seems kind of like that's just your version of that.
I guess so, yeah. Like rather than going through the time and laying out paperwork,
right?
Or marking up like a house plot or something with my own figures, I just create layout views and clone, as visually fixtured or layout wise as possible. Based on where fixtures are located, et cetera, et cetera.
I've just been told Devin Brown was the other Major Laser LD. That was from Justice. So thank you, sir. But yeah, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, you're good. And
Okay, so you've got, was that your full rig that you've got cloned over now?
Oh no,
Oh,
no.
my bad.
See, so I'm probably not gonna clone the entire thing. I just like, but I did want to just kind of go through my cloning process. If I were to actually clone this entire rig, we'll be here for another 2 hours.
Sure, sure.
So,
Okay.
um, but it's a slow going process for me. But I just happen to have my own console and whatnot, so I usually do this shit before I even go out on tour
Right, so I was
or
about
before
to
I
ask,
approach
like,
a
so
venue.
you're generally probably not cloning into a new venue like day of, like you've probably done a lot of your cloning work in advance.
I'll
If
I'll
you've
do it in
got,
my hotel room. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
And I mean,
Um,
I think that was, I didn't even think to cover that on mine, but like, I think a lot of people are in that boat where like, if you are cloning when you show up, either your rig is pretty small and straightforward, or you're probably screwed. Um,
right.
like all of the big festivals I was doing last year, like if I was on a crunch, they were being cloned the day before.
Yeah.
Ideally, they were being cloned like a week out, just so that like any hiccups, any major issues, I could go ahead and like see them coming and know what to brace for. But like
Uh-huh.
trying to just walk in day of and look at a plot of like 150 fixtures and clone to it when there's four other LDs waiting to get their time on the rig, nah.
Yeah. No, and like that was another thing when I was watching the stream on Thursday. I was like, well, that's that's he has it's just different when you're doing festivals, I guess. And
Right.
um, also Peter being as old as he is, he never does more than two shows in a row. So I always have
Oh,
a lot of days off to just sit in a hotel room and program, um, or uh,
yeah, that's one of those things
work
with
on
the,
stuff.
and
So
I don't want this to sound like derogatory at all, but with like the old people tours, where it's just
yeah,
like that's one of the good things about them is that they're not doing like 3 on or like rock metal tour 6 on kind of thing.
oh,
You don't have to worry about
I've
like that kind of a headache run back to back to back.
yeah, between both Doobies and Frampton, I'm almost guaranteed a day off after two shows.
That's that is
And
nice.
so it's nice, yeah. And that just it gives me a lot of peace of mind, especially when we do have festivals in the middle of a tour season. I know I can just take my console into the hotel room and uh, use that time to do this tedious cloning
Right.
process. And
On a relaxed schedule and not like ripping your hair out.
would you want me to dive into the cloning a bit more, or is there
I mean,
anything?
if that's your general process, I mean, I don't think repeating it 20 times is going to make much of a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any like unique things you do as far as like your updates go or anything like that?
As far as once I'm cloned and I'm just going through my executors and making sure everything looks right.
Yeah, is there like any special
Um,
safety like dummy checks you do to make sure that you've gotten what you need to get for that show?
so most of the time, um, I don't have too many executors that do um, elaborate or extravagant things. I do have a lot of stuff with my BIs, some sparkly stuff. I run my BIs in shapes mode. Um, so I will, I 90% of the time I have to lose the eye candy that I get with BIs if I'm cloning to just a generic wash fixture like an aura or something.
Sure.
Um, but if I do have a wash fixture that has some sort of engine or built-in bitmaps, I try to mimic that. Um,
Okay.
but also with my show file not being QStack necessarily, like here I have a temp that's just labeled Sparkle, and that's a BI temp, and
Sure.
I just hold that and the BI is Sparkle, and I'll go through that, and if I can program the fixtures that I clone to do something that resembles Sparkle, then I'll do that. Um,
Right.
but um, like another thing, I always go through my strobes. All of my strobes I do in palettes, So I do open, max random, and continuous strobe. In the max random, with some fixtures, you hit max random and it's a little too fast. It doesn't have like that lightning rock
Sure.
and roll effect. It's
Yeah.
almost the
Just
strobing
frantic.
isn't intermittent enough to look natural.
Yeah.
So I'll usually go through my strobe presets and make sure those are good. The continuous strobe preset, this one here, um, I always like to make sure that's about the rate of, a rock and roll drummer when they're railing on the snare,
Sure.
like right before a fill or something. I like it to have the same
Energy.
rate rate or energy as like those kind of snare stabs.
Yeah.
But I have open, max random, and continuous strobe. I always check those. As far as colors go, uh, I'll always check. Uh, I'll always check my ambers because I'm very picky about my ambers. Red's usually fine. Yellow's usually fine. Like the sea green, something that's like a turquoise, I always go through and check because that varies like drastically from fixture to fixture. So I always check that color. I always check my Congos, is CTO, CTB.
So with and I'm intrigued by like the way your show is structured because like again like the whole point of doing like this series was kind of to have like a variety of backgrounds. So like
Yeah,
for me doing like it's been mostly country music the last year, like it's a very different approach from like it's Q stacked, fairly polished, still focuses on the band on stage, same as a lot of I guess I'd say like modern day bands. Then we go to Chris
hmm
Toms, who's like EDM, which you're less concerned about the one guy on stage and more concerned about what you can do with air, with the aerial focuses of your lights in general.
yeah,
And then we get into like there's this thing with these older bands where they don't want, at least from like what I've gathered from other people, they don't want this like overly polished thing. They don't want this super overly synchronized show that you would get with like I don't know Demi Lovato or something where it's just like balls to the wall, like every moment is impactful, which is not at all like
yeah.
to shit on that style of programming, but it's for a different
No,
it's
not at
for
all.
a different kind of music. Whereas these
Yeah.
guys want it to feel like more organic, and
hmm
in leading to that, like it seems like just a simpler light show in general. I don't. I hope simpler doesn't sound like an insult with me saying that
No,
by
not
any
at all.
means. But like just the lack of all these like super synchronized moves and whatever is kind of what fits for them. Um,
Yeah.
I've just been kind of interested to see like how that works in for your workflow there. You have mentioned that you kind of have a unique punt page for each song, more or less. Is
hmm
there any detail? I guess we're kind of veering away from cloning at this point, but is there
Yeah.
any
That's fine.
detail in that that's worth kind of covering that might, you know, differ from how the other scenarios we've seen in the last week or so might operate? Kind of your priorities on those and what, because you've already made a pretty big mention of colors being a big thing, or rather, kind of a focal point for what you need to pay attention to for making sure the show has the impact and the energy that is intended.
Yeah.
Um, are
Um,
there any things?
Especially after cloning. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't
Um,
mean to cut you off. Are there any other things like as far as like per page that might be worth diving into a little bit? And no
let
is an
me.
acceptable answer. I'm not trying to like force you to just generate information here.
Oh, you're good. Let me just pop through here and see if anything pops out to me.
Sure.
So one thing that um, when I'm operating, I usually have like I'll divide my wash lights, whether they're BIs or whatever. I usually like to divide them up into three groups using the set next feature and just creating three different groups of like my washes. Um, and if I know, you might be able to see here in the layout view, or I can pop over to 3D. Um, Are they not patched? Is 3D even? Aha!
Oh no, we've got an issue here.
There we go.
Apparently I unmuted the wrong button for a moment. My bad,
You got me?
guys. Yeah, no, I
Okay.
started a feedback loop apparently, and I can't hear it. All good. We're back on.
Okay, cool. So one thing, I'll always divide, like I'll take my wash fixtures and divide them up into groups of 3, and you know, I kind of have this theory: if the bassist is walking the bass, then I'm walking buttons at the same rate he is.
Interesting.
Like my fingers are always active. So, or same with, I mean, any part of the music. I'm always rolling my fingers, or I'm doing a 1 2 1 2 1 2, or I'm doing a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, or sometimes it's a 1 and 4 2 and 3 1 and 4 2 and 3 1 and 4 2 and 3,
Sure,
just
yeah.
depending. But I'm just as active as every musician on that stage.
Yeah.
During the show, and which I've realized, touring and whatnot. Sometimes I'll get a tech that is not used to an LD that is that
Involved
in the show. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the LD doesn't even do anything. It's a time coded show, and they're just the crowd blinder bitch. Like I would get so bored doing that, and so I like to have an intimate role, walking the keys just as the basses would, or
yeah, like actively responding to the music.
for
And
sure.
I think,
And also with Frampton too, he never plays he never plays the song same night to night. Like one of his biggest hits, "Do You Feel Like We Do?" Some nights, if there's somebody in the front row taking selfies or trying to take selfies with him or something, he's not having it. He's gonna cut "Do You Feel" down to like 13 minutes, which still seems long for those of you who don't know the song. But he'll take that song up to a half hour sometimes. And
wow.
like, yeah,
Wow.
like he will just jam, and it's amazing what he does. So that's also a reason that I could never time code for him. I could never Q stack for him. I mean, I could have some basic looks in a Q stack maybe, but
Right.
He throws curveballs at me left and right. So
like,
it's constantly me adjusting to that.
Yeah, so like, and the way that works, the way you're having to work with that, like, it's a lot less important. Let me backtrack for a second. How deep are your Q stacks? Because you said there is like a main Q stack that's going along with the pump buttons, right?
Yeah, so for example, this particular page that I have up, this is Black Hole Sun. It's a Soundgarden Chris Cornell cover that he does.
Yeah.
And I always keep my Q stack or my bass look over here. And then this one just happens to be a single Q.
Camera.
Sorry. So over here, this is where I usually keep my main look or bass look or Q stack for each song.
Okay.
This is Black Hole Sun. It just happens to be only a single Q. Hold on, let me turn down these 9-inch displays.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I know it changes from show file to show
Right,
file,
right. It
so
stores
I gotta
that.
stay on top of that. That looks better. So this one just happens to be a single Q stack, but like Lying, second song in the show, it's just 2 Q stacks, which is just the bass and then depending on the song, I don't put my intensities in there. I tend to ride my intensities on masters over here. And then again, most of my additives are busking elements.
So
which I
you've
don't
got more like just kind of like a base mood that you're starting from, right?
pretty much, yeah.
That's just like it's just such a different way of working than I've ever like really had to use.
And that's I think a lot of that is me coming from Avo. Um,
Sure.
but
You know what? One thing I will say is there was. It's more of like we're getting, I guess, kind of philosophy of how to program here, but
yeah.
like there's my understanding is like a lot of Avo guys will kind of set up like a look on each fader. So like you'll have like your chorus on one fader and like your verse on another, or more or less something to that effect. And I've seen like a lot of MA guys like shit on that approach. But I will say, like, when I was like trying to figure out how to just roll my way through songs quickly, even if they're supposed to be like intricately cue stacked, just to like start out in broad strokes by doing that, by setting up
Hmm.
like different looks on different executors and not think about tracking, not think about how anything is going to get from one point to another, like it can
Right.
speed up your programming process so much. And if you happen to decide you want to run a show that way, I know it can be a waste of fader resources is generally the argument there, because avos tend to have a lot more faders than an
For
ma.
sure. Yeah.
But like if your artist decides, oh, they're going to redo a section with, and like with Frampton, it sounds like that's a very common situation. It's super easy to just go, okay, let's just switch over to our this look again, if we have a look
Yep.
built for that.
For
I
sure.
just like seeing like that kind of, because again, it's the way you approach a show is always going to be different based on what you're doing and the way the artist is going to interact. In your case, like the way you're working reminds me a lot of I don't know if you've ever listened to Luke Stratton's or the Light Side podcast. But he did one with Candace Brightman, who was with Grateful Dead.
Okay.
And like the way she was working, it just sounds a lot like what you're doing, where like she's just so active, she was so actively involved with the band to a degree of like being as much a band member as anybody on stage, responding, learning to how to read the band members, learning how to respond to certain things that are coming up. You start to get a sense of what they're about to do,
100%.
like just as much as they're reading each other.
I am like I've over the past 6 years with Frampton, and I don't even know if he's aware of some of his body language, but he has very obvious body language to me. I can look at him or I can look at his drummer and tell immediately that he's about to just do a musical break or just drop out uh, or go into a solo. Watching Peter and the drummer and the way they communicate to each other,
Yeah,
I'm mostly watching the drummer. Even you would think I'd watch Peter Frampton because he's my principal, but the drummer is the engine, and he's kind of he's my energy. He's who I feed off of for the most part.
sure.
So I'm usually eyes locked with the drummer, especially like Black Hole Sun. Do you feel like we do? And then some of like the Humble Pie stuff that he goes into. Um, those songs can go any direction. So I'm just always watching the drummer. You know, if I see that hand go up high, I know I'm going to hear a crash cymbal a second later. So you know, I've got my finger ready for the mega pow. And
Right.
um,
Yeah, I mean,
but
and at that point, like your role as an LD kind of changes too, because like again, from my Q stack or from my time code shows, like when I've had to have somebody fill in for me or something, to have someone fill in on a time code show, all they really need knowledge of is basically how does this show clone, if it needs
right,
cloning at all. If it's a touring rig, you don't even have to know that. You just know how to update some positions, and you're pretty much set. Um,
yep,
and then need to know how to check the time codes working, versus
yep,
like with something as live and as interactive as this, it's so much more about knowing how to read the band to the point where like if you need to have somebody fill in, I imagine that's a hell of a lot more of an issue.
it's not even possible.
Yeah, 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 just like the amount of like intimate knowledge that somebody filling in would have to have, it would basically have to be a prior LD. or somebody who's been
Yeah.
like shadowing the show. Like if you have a tech that's been sitting out at front of house with you for like 6 months on this tour, maybe.
Yeah. Which the very last show of the last Frampton tour I did, um, Cody actually had to do lights for like the last half of the last song because Peter wanted to have his touring crew on stage for a bow because it was his last
Oh, sure,
show in the
sure.
U.S. So so I literally had to leave front of house in the middle of a number, book it to stage, and the last number was what was it? While my guitar gently weeps. Um,
Nice, nice.
but it has a lot of energy. And I just told him, I'm like, I've got these flashes here, I got some strobe buttons here. Just watch the drummer, feel him out, you'll be fine. Like, and he did just fine.
Yeah.
But if he had to do the whole show and read the artist like I have to, it'd be a different story. But
Right, because you've had the time to spend with them to just get to know how they interact.
yeah, for sure. Um,
Check some.
you were mentioning earlier, or a bit ago, about how some LDs like to place like verse, chorus,
Right, right.
bridge, like on individual faders. Like for example, "Baby I Love Your Way," which most people know that song. Um, it's pretty much one look the entire song, but once he kicks into the chorus, "Oh baby I love your way," I just have a chorus toggle, and I just hit that toggle, and here, we can even here, let's fire the whole look here. It's off. But once he gets the chorus, I just toggle in the chorus, and once the chorus is done, and I just untoggle it.
And that button's just set to kind of build on the bass look that's already there.
Pretty much, exactly. Yeah.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
and that's most of my show. Black Hole Sun is again just a very it's just a bass look, and when the chorus kicks in and I hit my chorus button, and there's my chorus lights, chorus is done, and then I just toggle it off again.
Yeah, just such a just such a different way of working than I think a lot of us are used to.
For sure. It works for me. And I've had plenty of people, you know, I would say criticize, but question my
Sure,
approach
sure.
and whatnot. But I haven't lost my job yet, so I'm just
Hey,
gonna keep doing what I do.
right, absolutely. I'm trying to check if we have any questions. Because, like I said, I think we've kind of just gotten a little more into a podcast mode here, which I don't think is a bad
For
thing at
sure.
all.
No, that's cool.
Um, looks like we've mostly just kind of got a conversation going up in here. We got Chris from Thursday talking about how he came from Avo, but like just immediately from a punt background, so his workflow is much different. Apparently,
Yeah.
never Q stacked. Oh, onto a Hog 3 F. I
Oof.
shouldn't. I shouldn't. Say, that was actually my first desk was a Hog 3. Um,
I will say, like, again, no desk's a bad desk. This is like the whole Nikon versus Canon debate. Like, they're not. Neither of them are bad cameras. It's user preference,
right,
but Hog and Campsys, those are the two consoles that I just do not vibe with.
right. I give the UF to Hog 3 just because I know, like, apparently, and this I am not entirely certain where I heard this from anymore, but the process of getting from Hog 3 to Hog 4 started out with them just rewriting the Hog 3 software from scratch, and apparently
Gotcha.
wiped out like 300,000 lines of code from it.
Oh
Just
wow.
doing that, like that was part of why Hog 3 was so notorious for crashing. Was just they had redundancies and like counter things happening all over the place. Hog 4, I haven't really used it, but I've actually not really heard anything but good things about it, except from people who just are MA for life. But as it goes.
I mean, if I do a tour where I don't carry a console, I advance MA, and secondly, I advance AVO. The hologram tour that I did, actually, a good majority of that was South America,
Yeah,
and MAs aren't as easy to come by as AVOs. So I got an AVO quite a bit of the time. And
sure.
another thing that's kind of probably different for me than many other LDs is I don't carry a show file typically. If I don't carry a console, I don't carry a show file. I will program one from scratch day of, a quick little punt page,
Sure.
and call it good. But like Frampton, I've always had a console, but like base hologram or the hologram tour that I did, it was Maria Callas. It was opera singer. And there was 3 looks for the entire 2.5 hour show.
Oh, damn.
And then I had to bring up a couple specials occasionally.
Sure.
But that was about it. So
I mean, at the
I mean, there's no point in carrying a show file at that point. I can create those 3 looks in 45 minutes, if that.
do you want to show us how you would clone those 3 looks?
If you guys are all really, really bored and have nothing better to do, sure.
We do have a question, just a little more generic, on asking if you can talk about how far you go with presets. So I guess that I'm interpreting that to mean just like how detailed you get with your use of presets. How many different position presets you're keeping, key light
Okay.
positions.
So for my position presets, I have a band preset, and band is basically downstage fixtures, 1 per, sometimes 2 if I have multiples, but usually a fixture per band member. Same with my upstage fixtures, usually per electric.
Okay.
And then my home position is just pretty much everything slightly tilted out, hitting the downstage edge, just a good starting point.
Okay.
And then I have all of my solo focuses, which is, everything on keys, everything on Adam on guitar, everything on Dave on bass, everything on drums, everything on the talk box, and everything on Peter.
Question, if I can pause you there.
Yeah.
Well, if you're touring with a rig, I guess you don't have to worry about that too much. How do you build those positions when you're on a new rig? Are you manually just pan tilting them, or are you using stage view focus mode?
It depends on how well they laid out their 3D.
Oh, fair enough.
If
Yeah.
their 3D is laid out well, I'll go and what's it called? I'll use what's the terminology for it?
I just call it follow mode if you're talking about using
Follow,
stage
yeah.
view.
But no, I'll use follow, and it gets me close enough. Sometimes I have to dial them in.
Sure.
Also, sometimes if you have raked fixtures, like with the design I was showing you that Chris Lyle designed,
Right.
like with fixtures raked like that, it can sometimes really mess with how that all
Oh, I'm sure. Like, cause
works. I
that.
mean, sometimes you have fixtures doing an entire 360 to hit where it thinks it should hit, rather than taking the shortest route.
Right.
Um,
Sorry, I interrupted. You were
oh,
just through
you're
your
good.
key light, all lights on people.
Yeah. And then, I've just got my crisscross, which is basically every other fixture like this. And then I got my other crisscross, which is just the total opposite of it. Let's see, Money Duel. That is a focus that I use for one song. And it's when Peter and his guitarist are just in front of the drums and they're dueling back and forth. That's a focus that I just have on a fader.
Okay.
And I just kind of ease it in as they get to that position.
And are they pretty good about hitting marks on stage, or are you kind of trying to chase them?
Hell no. That's why it's on a fader.
Understood.
So they got better this year, so I only have it on a fader that slowly moves into the position they're supposed to be at.
Sure.
Um, but I used to have a couple faders over here, which would shift the entire focus stage left or stage right based on pushing this fader up or this fader up.
Gotcha. Yep. Been there.
It would just bump that focus left or right so I could chase them,
Being your own
if that
follow
makes
spot.
sense.
I've
Heck
been there
yeah.
before.
It keeps you on your toes.
Absolutely.
Um,
On which note,
um,
actually, do you have follow spots on this show?
yeah, we advance 4 follow spots.
Okay. Is there a particular process you have with them? Or are they just kind of hey, here's your guy, follow him?
So I'm very adamant about doing a spot meeting in person
Interesting. Okay.
before every show. Half hour before show, I like to meet spots. I like to make eye contact with all of them, make sure they're sober, make sure they're present.
Sure.
And the second I see a spot up that seems a little disengaged, I already know I'm going to assign you to my pickups, not Peter.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about
So
doing I actually have always done my spot meetings on headset so that they have the instrument in their hands for a few things, but never thought of it that side of doing it in
no,
person. Okay.
yeah, I do a spot meeting in person half hour before show, and I basically go through the stage layout. Um, I run my spots dual redundancy, so spots 1 and 4 or 1 and 3 are pickups. Spots 2 and 4 are always on Peter.
Okay.
Um, and the reason I do that is 1, redundancy, and also 2, like if you've ever done Guilford, Meriwether
Yes.
Post, or not Meriwether Post Pavilion, Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion.
Yes.
It's like amazing backstage, like the best catering in all of the country.
Yes. No. Yes.
But
Absolutely.
yes, like they have the best vibes. They got a pool, they got mini golf, open bar after the show. It's
Most
great.
incredible
But
catering ever.
it's super low trim, and your spotlights are extreme left and extreme right.
Yeah. Yep.
So I can't. So if I'm doing 1 and 3 for my
All
pickups
shadow.
and 2 and 4 for Peter, I always have consistent key light.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if all 4 of my spots happen to be center and right above me, well, if one of them's sleeping, then there's another guy to
Right.
pick
Right.
up for
Right.
them. So at that point, it's just redundancy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And as far as colors go, I advance a half CT, a full CT, and a Roscoe 132 Frost in frame 3.
Okay.
It's usually a combination of 1 and 3 or 2 and 3.
So they don't like hard edge.
I don't like hard edge.
Okay. I mean that.
That's my personal preference. I've never heard anything from them,
Okay.
but I think I've always felt like having the soft edge gives the follow spots a little bit of forgiveness. Like
For
say
sure.
the follow spot has a loose yoke and it's kind of like wobbly, or the catwalk is shaky, and sometimes a spot booth is where people are and it can shake the floor wherever they're at. And having that hard edge, you see that shake every time it
Yeah.
happens. Having a soft edge, you're never going to see that shake, or the spot op's at least not going to have to be concerned about me seeing the shake and calling them on it. It's
Right.
forgiving for them.
Yeah. I've always preferred soft edge, but usually when I bring it up, at least quite a few artists I've worked for, they prefer having the hard edge. They want the rock star look, and that hard edge kind of makes them feel like rock and roll spotlight kind of thing. Have you ever had complaints from your spot ops about having to use frost? Do they ever find it harder to aim using that?
So I always tell my spots, especially if I know I'm going into a venue with weak spots or something, I'm very gracious. So I say, if for some reason the frost is making your job difficult, let me know.
Sure.
And if I think it's okay, yeah, drop it out, whatever. Like,
How
Um,
commonly do they have any issues? Is that much of an occurrence?
it's not too common. I mean, there are a few sheds that you walk into and you just know the spots are putsy,
Sure.
and so like that's something I usually say right off the bat during my spot meeting. I'm like, hey, I know the spots here are kind of shit, so if the frost is making your job difficult, we can lose it. Just let me know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Fair enough. I had
yeah.
a really good conversation with boy, I hope I'm not like getting him in trouble by saying this, but Keith from Jason Aldean, is their LD. Um, Hoagland, good lord, Keith Hoagland. I don't know. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at my own name some days.
That's all good.
But he was telling me like part of that issue with a lot of venues, and I guess we're kind of getting political-ish here, is just like apparently there's a lot of like Live Nation like cutting spot pay, and as a result, like the experienced spot ops just don't want to do it anymore because, I mean, they've spent years, decades in a lot of cases building up that skill set. Like anybody who thinks that running a spot op isn't a skill can go up there and do
Oh,
it,
it's a skill.
because it is. And you start cutting the pay of the people who have that skill, and you're gonna start getting not skilled spot ops, and it's just a
Mhm.
really I only wanted to bring that up because I think it's really unfortunate, and I think too often we get to feeling like it's just we're getting a bunch of people that don't care in a place when realistically it's like there's circumstances in place where the only people that are going to get recruited are the ones that don't care because they're the only ones that are going to
Right.
go up there for at best minimum wage and at worst no extra pay at all.
Hmm.
Like they're up
Yeah.
there for a volunteer gig, which is just kind of lame in my opinion. But anyways, kind of diverged a little bit there. But
Oh, it's all good. Do we have any more questions?
let's
Is
see. A lot more conversation going on. Favorite follow spot system? I'm gonna say humans.
oh, yeah, I don't care for many of the automated follow spot options.
Yeah,
Um, I I like having a person, and I also like giving people work. So,
yeah, fair enough. We do have a bit of a
um,
flicker, just so you know. It's not killing the
I see
stream,
that. Yeah.
but um, yeah. I mean, kind of same. I think the
Oof.
follow me stuff can be fantastic for, or not follow me specifically, but any of those automation things can be great for synchronized blackouts and that kind of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
but it's also one more step of complexity you have in your show.
Um,
Big,
like I've only had them once, and it was when Frampton performed at a Walmart corporate gig. Um,
all right.
but they were actually, I believe they were operated by, I believe they were manned, but it controlled four different spots.
Right.
It was a front spot, high side left, high side right, and upstage. And one operator basically tracked the artists, and all those followed him. And I was able to
Yeah.
control intensity and all that. I mean, it was cool. I liked it.
And that was
Um,
one thing that Aldine was using was that follow me system, and it worked great so long as it was calibrated and set
mhm.
up. It was just the amount of time they had to spend making sure that it was calibrated in advance. Calibrated in
Right. Yeah.
advance. Um,
It's tedious.
I do like because follow me. There's Roby's one. There's the PRG one, and those are all human manned.
Yeah.
Versus you have like black tracks, and I'm sure there's other ones out there now. And my issue with those has always just been how steppy they can be. Like I've seen a show or two. I'm not gonna put names out there, but that just like
Yeah.
you're watching. It's like, well, good lord, they like bent down a little bit, and it like just snapped to follow them. It's like distracting after a
Ooh.
point.
Okay.
It's just it keeps up a little
It just
too
doesn't have that human
rapidly.
touch.
Yeah. Like they've
Yeah.
still got some work to do on smoothing out the edges, I think, on that. But that is coming from a position of having never used it myself. So take anybody listening, take that with a large grain of salt. I am only speaking from what I am assuming I am seeing watching YouTube videos. I'm not seeing much of any other questions, just comments attesting to that. We've got Chris Toms again from Thursday, just kind of reiterating like having humans on the other end of it, not having much of an
Yep.
issue. Ba-do. No, I'm not really like seeing anything
Sweet. Hey, that's fine.
else. Like I said, we've kind of gotten into podcast mode here, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's all these like
No,
little touches of touring that kind of really make the gig at the end of the day. It's not just the technical end of it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Just learning one of the best quotes that still rings in my head was Cody Cheatham, your crew chief out there, saying like, you are out here, you're not working gear, you're working people. Like, and that at the end of the
Exactly.
day, like, that is the biggest skill to have. And I really fucking hate acknowledging that, because that is absolutely my weakest end of being an LD, is wrangling people.
Yeah. Oh, it's mine too.
Like, I mean,
I
I think we're an industry that's made up hugely of nerds that like, I think most of us that feel pretty confident on the tech side, usually it's through lacking skills on the human side, not like in a like, negative antagonistic way by any means, but like I can personally say that like interacting with people is not where my strong suit is running a show. It is a board. It is ones and zeros
for
and pushing
sure.
buttons. So that the human
Yeah.
side is definitely always one of those, like, got to make sure I'm giving it enough attention, putting the work in to keep up with it.
For me, a lot of it is I'm not good at barking orders at people. I don't like being that guy. So uh, I just like to be the quiet person that does my job, and
Yeah.
everybody thinks it's cool because I'm not the guy saying go do this, do that. Here, flip this console with me.
And that's one of those
uh,
great things from like talking, especially to some of the more experienced LDs. Again, Keith Hoagland from Aldine. We had one show where, I mean, the spot ops. It was one of two times that I don't know if I swore at those guys. But I was pretty pissed off. I mean, I've come to find out later, like, two of the guys had their girlfriends up there. They were just having a party.
oh my
They
god.
one spot just had completely left his spot unattended for a full 30 seconds before I corrected him. I mean, I was just watching to see how long he was going to go, because that was the last straw. I was like, okay, all right, he is
uh,
stage right. You're on stage left. We're just going to see how long this takes. Um, and
there.
he Keith got on comms when he got ready for when their set started, and he just had a way of like figuring out how to communicate to them, like, hey guys, not only are you fucking up, but you're fucking up bad, and you're going to correct it in a way that made them respond and correct it, rather than just sending them down for the night. Which is
Mhm.
just, again, you just get into the people skills of it, that it's just a lifetime of learning how to deal with certain scenarios.
I'm definitely. I mean, I'm definitely good about my communication skills with my hands or my ops. I've gotten much better at that. It's still not my strongest, um, you know, trait, I guess.
Sure.
But you know, I can't take 20 guys like Cody does. But if you give me 5 guys, I can task 5 guys.
Sure.
Sure. Um, yeah, come to front of house with me. Let's flip my console, set up my rack. Run some cables. Cool. But like I can't hustle 15 to 20 people like he can.
Yeah. I just can't
And on
keep
that whole
track of where they
spotlight,
are half the time.
right, that too, I just can't keep track of who's mine and
Yeah.
who's audios. And
Yep. I love the colored t-shirt days or the stickers or something.
oh yes. um uh,
Sorry, I
what were
derailed
we
you.
what were we talking about?
Spot ops
uh
and dealing with
oh
just
yeah.
talking to them.
So there was one time last year, I had a spot up that just, and I had given them several verbal warnings, like spot 2, wake up, spot 2, you're missing your artist, or He was having issues with his iris. Every time I would call for the spots to black out, he would iris out. I'm like, gosh, I can't.
Right.
That's not your shutter. That's your iris. And I was trying to explain it to him, and I even tried to get Spot 3 to come over and help Spot 2. And I was like, hey, Spot 2, I'm very sorry, but I'm gonna have to call you off tonight. Go ahead and come on down. And then Jonathan was on dimmers, and I said, Jonathan, could you go up on the catwalk and
Right.
fill in for Spot 2?
Yeah.
I hate doing that.
Yeah, it's never a pleasant situation. The last show I did, the spot op got up there and nobody told me the only thing he knew how to operate was a camera. So he was like, "Oh, it's got an iris, it's got whatever, like it'll be the same thing, right?" like we got 2 minutes into the spot meeting, I was like, "Dude, I'm sorry. Like this is nothing personal, but I have to ask you to come down. We got to send somebody else up there because I can't. This is the first show we've done in 4 months. I can't like put this responsibility on you right now." Shit, I had somewhere I was going with that, and I lost it. We're talking about calling spots down. No. Oh, just one thing I wanted to say. Like, I think it's also really important for any of us who have dealt with the bad spot ops to also remember to because we'll talk to the steward or whoever. It's usually either the steward or the head rigger that's responsible for the spot ops, and we're always plenty quick enough to go let them know when the spot ops are fucking up. But there was one night I've got like a fucking little notebook in my hand trying to keep track of notes. I have a terrible memory some days. And I go and find the head rigger. I was like, "Hey, are you responsible for the spots?" And his you just watch the color drain out of his face. He's like, "Yeah, what's up?" It's like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know they did a fucking awesome job tonight. They were all on point. Whatever. They really appreciate when they get the good comments too, because it doesn't happen commonly enough. And I think it's important to make sure that when people are doing a good job that they feel appreciated for it.
Yeah. So one thing to add on to that too, since I do personally, since I meet with my spot ops in person before every show, I know the person that I'm calling off spot, so I know I'm probably going to see them at loadout.
Right.
But I always make an effort to approach them in person after the show. I said, and just be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry I had to pull you off, but you were making me look bad, and I can't have my artist coming after me because of your lack of effort, and I'm very sorry, but I just want to make peace with you." And because you're also going to have to see these people next year when you tour through their venue again.
Right.
So you have to keep those relationships, civil.
Yeah.
I mean, but also you have to maintain the integrity of your show.
And sometimes the guy you've got up there, it's not even necessarily their fault that they're just not trained on the instrument. They might be doing the best job they can, but they're just not cut to pull it off on 3 hours of notice with no training whatsoever. And
and it's rare I have issues. I have a very easy spot call. I don't change colors at all during the show.
Sure.
Spots 2 and 4 on Peter, they don't black out. They only black out one time during the show. They just follow the entire time. So they should have it pretty easy. 1 and 3 doing my pickups. I've got maybe 6 calls for them.
Sure. So it's not a super intensive show.
It's a pretty easy show. So if you're fucking up on spots, it's a competency thing at that point.
Fair enough. But that is one of the hard things when you've got a rough spot. It's one of those things, for me, I have to go through the scenarios in my head when I'm just sitting at home in peace and quiet, because when you're in the heat of the show and you're not prepared to deal with a spot op that's not cutting it, the stress of the show, and then either that stress coming through or you trying to figure out in the moment how to not let that stress come through, it's real easy to try to to default into nice guy mode and try to just not be mean to them. Okay, well, it's probably not their fault. Well, it doesn't really matter if it's their fault or not. At the end of the day, you got to make sure the show on stage looks good. And that was a super hard one for me to arrive at. I'm not the best at like trying to initiating something I know is going to be conflict. I think that's the case for any of us who haven't had to deal with it. No, stream quality dropped a little. It's like, yeah, okay, it's not their fault, but you have to be ready in advance to figure out, well, how are we going to handle it if that kind of situation comes up? One, is it them being crappy, or is it them just not knowing? And then knowing where to go from there, whether you got to kind of give them something a little more stern to get them corrected, or whether you need to know when to cut your losses and calm down and get somebody else up there. But like, again, at the end of the day, you got to make sure the show looks the way it's supposed to look. So you kind of have to know when you have to be the bad guy, and you don't want to, but it's better than letting the show suffer for your lack of willing to deal with conflict.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So people might enjoy this. This is my my spot plot that I show to my spot operators before the show. And they're all doppelgangers except for Peter. Peter has to be Peter. But we got Eric Church over here in place of Adam on guitar, Brad Pitt in place of our keyboardist Rob Arthur, and then we've got Dave Grohl here in place of our long-haired bassist David Labriere, and then Rick. Okay.
I love it.
So don't light him. This little monkey over here.
Is that monitor guy?
That is our guitar tech, and he's always crouched right next to this riser, feeding and pulling Peter's guitar cable, so he doesn't trip over it. So he's just always crouched over here. So I just found the emoji monkey and put him there and said, "Don't light him." But
I love that.
This is I print one of these every day on an 8.5 by 11, and I write my spots names down here, so I have them all by name. And they have a visual layout of what the stage looks like. It's also an icebreaker. This just right. When I do my spot meeting, and they see this, like, hey, the guy has a sense of humor. It's not going to be a shitty night. So,
right,
yeah. So,
I love that. My first show with one artist, we had a spot call, or actually we had a guest artist coming on stage. It wasn't announced beforehand, so I just found out over ears. I'm like, hey guys, stand by, someone's going to be coming in for stage left. And the only time of the whole night that a spot call went without a go was when our guitar tech was running on stage to grab the guitar that he was going to be using. So I'm like, okay, stand by. Guitar tech runs out, and he's telling the story later. He's like, all right, I'm going to sneak out. It's dark. And he runs out, and it's just pick up the guitar tech in complete fucking darkness. Like Congo look on stage. And he's like, okay, I'm going to be sneaky. Oh, shit, yes. Oh, shit, oh, shit, oh, shit, oh, shit, oh, shit. Oh, that became the running joke for the rest of the time hilarious. I was on that tour.
So the spot op thought it was his pickup.
Yeah, like, so he picks him up, I'm like, no, out, no, that's not our guy. Dude, what was that? We've been on goes all night. He's like, sorry, man, I thought you hadn't called. I'm like, all good, it's all good, I get it. I'm gonna get so much shit for that later, but you know what? You've been on point, whatever.
Yeah, I gotta go on a bus with that guy after this, but thanks.
It was in Vegas. Like, those spot ops are almost always on point, and like I said, they were. Besides that, it was just one of those funny things after seeing that monkey.
Actually, it was last year, and I always tell my spot ops, like, spots 1 and 3, you don't have anything to do for the first 3 or 4 songs, so just sit back and enjoy the show. Yeah. And this one time I had a spot up, and he was chiming in every once in a while. I don't mind a little bit of chatter because I don't have I don't have a ton of calls, so it's not like there's much time to interrupt me. But about 5 or 6 songs in this one spot up, he's like, "Hey man, I'm getting pretty bored up here. Are there any calls coming up soon?" I'm like, no, just chill. Like, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, I'm sorry you're bored. Enjoy the show.
I'm sorry you're getting paid to have an easy night. Like, sorry? Question mark? As it goes.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things I always have to like say in advance. Is like I don't like, especially when there's like 6 spot ops. Like, guys, like, please mics shut and chatter down unless it's show critical.
Yeah, I
Like
always tell them to
it's
close their mics, but
it's very show dependent, but like the main tour I was on last year, I mean, I had video and the rest of lighting on my headset, and then I'm listening to the band and their talkbacks in my ears, and then I've got a radio that sometimes get used mid show and would or would not get routed. Sometimes we had issues with that getting routed into the ears. It's like, guys, I'm listening to like 15 voices at a given time. Sometimes, like, I know you're just kind of bullshitting up there and you don't hear what's coming through my headset, but if it's not show critical, like on this one,
please,
I
yeah.
really need you to keep it down just because it is so easy for me to get lost in all the sources, which led to me building a whole like rack audio setup, which was a giant sink of money, but super great if we ever have shows again. But anyways.
Have you ever had spots sing along with their mic open?
Oh, I have not, but I've heard a story or two from some friends that have. Yeah.
Oh baby, I love your way. It never fails, at least once a year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like
yeah.
a running joke between the ops, but when it gets to that chorus, they all open up their mics and oh baby, I love you. Like,
Maybe
oh my
people have
gosh,
told them in
guys.
advance it bugs you.
I don't know, probably. But
Oh man.
I mean,
Well,
how could you not belt that song?
while we're talking about spots, guys, in the comments, I mean, it looks like we're having a good time, but do we have any questions like from people for various spot situations you've like run into in the past that you haven't known how to handle, or things that like might come up that you haven't thought to ask other people before? I don't know. Do we have any spot related questions, since that's kind of become the second focus of this?
Yeah,
Give them a
curious.
second to respond because we got like a 10-second delay on this thing. Anybody have a nice meme of crickets they would like to post in response? Give another second or two for people to type, but I'm guessing we don't have a whole lot.
How many people do we have in still?
We're 20 still. We're higher than we started. I think
Sweet.
actually once we started just shifting into like podcast mode, we started retaining a lot more people.
Cool.
Yeah, just a lot of confirmation. We have had people singing along with the set before. I know I've had I don't want to give away his artist, but I've had Zach in the comments over here. He's had a fan or two be a spot op before, where he starts explaining the show and spot op just comes in. I know every single one of their songs. Don't even worry about calling it.
Oh
And
my gosh,
without
no.
fail, the guy hit every single mark, knew
Wow.
what solos were coming, knew everything about their show before it happened. Zach just commented, said it was the best thing he ever had.
So I'm actually curious, has anybody in this room ever worked with Styx or Libby Gray?
Is Libby from Styx? Yeah, that was actually that was my first time running a spot op, was for them.
Oh
And
wow.
for her,
So
yeah.
that's
A little
you,
intimidating.
you had an experience then. Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't know at the time that it was normal to do spot meeting like 15 minutes before show start, because like I was still new to lighting, like in general. So like they're like spot calls at like 7:45. I'm like, show's at 8 though. What? How is anybody gonna tell me how to use this thing? Like I don't fucking like I'd never used a spot op, and my first show is running a spot for Styx. I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna fucking die.
And Libby will grill you. Like
She was intense, but she was
she's
great.
oh, I love her. She's one of my best friends on the road now. But
Yeah.
before I toured, when I was doing local production, like she's actually I learned a lot of my busking methods from her, because she
Yeah.
started on Avo as well and has transitioned over to MA2. But just shadowing her, the production company I did, we did Styx shows probably 3 or 4 times a year. So I would see her often, um, and her show is always notorious for the really unique asymmetric 120K patch and parcan plot.
Okay, sure.
Lots of weird 1Ks here and there, and then there's even there's a couple 2Ks in the upstage where two fixtures are paired on the same channel, but this one has a blue gel and this one has a green gel. And
Yeah.
you, as the shop kid patching this and gelling it, you're like, what? Like, this can't be right. But no, it's right.
So like I didn't get to do work with her design, like, so I was my beginning of working on cruise ships, and they had, it was with Carnival. They did this Carnival Live series, and Styx was the artist for that one.
Okay.
And so we were just using the theater rig. I think they brought in like 2 Q picks and like maybe 4 floor lights or something. They didn't add much.
Okay.
Although Carnival does have a pretty extensive theatrical rig. At least conventional rig, I should say.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I didn't get to see any of like her design process. It was just a matter of like, she came in and she definitely, like, she's not somebody who's gonna take somebody's shit. Like, you could see
Oh, no.
you meet her and you're like, okay, I'm gonna stay in line because like she's smiling right now, but I am certain that if I step out of line, she will not hesitate to make me aware of it.
Yeah, no, but like, and she doesn't. I don't think she means any disrespect by it. She's
Oh
just,
no,
she's a woman in
absolutely,
a
yeah,
brutal industry, so she just has to maintain that. But
yeah,
she does it with respect.
yeah. I never
I
felt
don't think
like
she's ever
insulted by her.
been out of line by any means. But she's just a great person for any young LD to kind of get to shadow, and just as far as the way she carries herself, presents herself,
Mm-hmm.
communicates to her hands and her own crew and her peers.
Yeah,
She's a perfect example of how to LD
yeah. She was.
and how to work with people on the road. I mean,
Yeah, she was very focused. She was like, yeah, very, very great to work with. Like the end of the show, I'm like, I was coming up to her, I'm like, I don't even like really know what questions to ask, but like your show is incredible. Like I know very little
oh.
still. I still didn't even know that AT-AT put fixtures at full at the time. I was that new. But like it was one of those, this is like, because her show is entirely punted. I don't know if that's what it usually is, but
Wait, so at puts fixtures up,
right. I'm seeing a lot of people in the comments saying the same thing. Is just like say like that she's legit, that she's super great to work with.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I did have a question come up right as we were getting into that. How do you handle a follow spot caller that tells 6 follows to follow one guy during rehearsal for 20 minutes straight and just leaving his console? Is this a specific situation? Follow one guy. I mean, personally, I've never even had follow spots at rehearsal that I'm aware of. Or we have like a dress rehearsal day. I had a dress rehearsal day in like the first venue, basically the day before the show. But
yeah, usually my spots get to the venue at doors or shortly after doors. So.
right. I thought it was about to be a TV production. I'm not even gonna try to speak for TV. I've worked maybe like 2 filming gigs and 0 like broadcast. Well, no, not 0 broadcast, but 0 where I'm calling spots. So I will not try to speak to that. But yeah, I thought it was about to be a question about just working with a bunch of spots. Which has actually not been nearly as terrifying as I thought it'd be. You just kind of break them into groups and you're off. But yeah, just more comments about Libby being cool to work with. I just think that's so funny you brought her up. Like, I don't even remember the last time I thought about that show being like just such a like unique experience to get to have, like your first time running spot being for a band like that.
I think it's interesting that was your first experience, because I mean that's a good way to be thrown into the fire.
Yeah, like I was straight up like wetting myself. There was one call where I think she even counted down to it, but it was a big synchronized blackout, and I was the only one who slammed their shutter the wrong direction. Oh my god, that moment. Yeah, it was rough. She was never rude to us though.
No.
As incompetent as we were, given that I was the only lighting person. We had an audio person, a backstage tech, and I don't even remember who the fourth spot was in there. So given the circumstances, like, she was dealing with not a skilled crowd and handled this quite well.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I think that kind of wraps it up. I don't, unless you've got like other stories to get into from there, but I'm kind of at the end of my spot stories here.
For sure. Yeah, as long as if our viewers are content, I'm at a good place.
I'm just kind of.
I
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Since I am occupying ESI's space, I have to throw a shout out to them. So thanks ESI for letting me use your facilities and electricity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bandit, for providing that sticker as your background.
Ah, yes.
And Cody for having it printed. Well, cool. Well,
all right.
Thanks to everybody who tuned in for this,
sure.
and hoping we can do some more of these. Like, I really actually enjoyed getting into the weeds and some of these other lighting things. So I'm hoping some of the other guys like gained something from this, or just enjoyed hearing some bullshitting that was road related that we haven't gotten to hear in a little while. So thanks again to Paul for joining us, and we'll try to keep doing these as the endless stream of not shows continues. Shit, don't want to end it on a depressing note. Sorry about that, guys. Anyways, we will do something like this next week. We've got Elliot Mountford lined up. We're looking at covering some time code stuff sometime next week, so we'll dive into that and hopefully get some helpful knowledge out of that. So
sweet.
We will resume again next week. So have a great rest of the day, everybody out there.
All right. And thank you so much for hosting me and having me.
Absolutely. Catch you all later. And the stream is dead.